What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 5 of the Pale Blue Dot podcast. I am your host, Ben Jackson, and with me today is my co-host, Grant Barlow.
Yo.
Grant, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
And today's guest, I can hear you, yeah.
Lovely.
Today's guest is Lydia Jarjoura of Lunar Nourishment. Lydia, how are you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
I am really well. I am so excited you're able to join us today. I remember actually when you and I met, I think it was in like March of this last year, I want to say.
Okay.
I had one of the craziest days that I've had probably in like the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, gosh.
And was in massive crisis mode. And one of our really good friends said, hey, you need to take a chill pill, breathe, go do yoga, and then come back and talk to me later. Because I had like reached out and said, I need help. And she's like, the only help you can find is in yourself. Go do yoga.
Oh.
So I went to a Bikram class. And then Gabriel actually said, hey, you should stay for yin. And I believe that was the first time you and I met. I think you, if I remember correctly, I think you taught that class.
Yeah, I used to teach there quite a lot. Not lately anymore, but yeah, I don't remember that day or that specific class, but yeah, that's awesome.
So what I remember about that was, first of all, I kind of left like everything in the Bikram class and just got it all out of my system. Mm-hmm. And then when I sat in your yin class, it was probably the first time that I'd done focused meditation or like guided meditation.
Oh, okay.
Years.
Uh-huh.
And that, coupled with a book I was reading at the time, kind of kicked off an ongoing fascination with meditation. So
nice. Was that the conversation?
Knowing what I know of you.
Was that when we had a conversation after class for a while about meditation and I told you about Vipassana? Was that day?
Well, so I think that was like the next week, but okay. It was very similar to that because like it kicked off from a class that I did with you.
Yeah.
I was also reading Sam Harris's book, Waking Up, which is about like finding spirituality without religion.
Yeah.
And so all of those things kind of like at a segue there, like all of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like at an intersection in my life was a fascinating exposure to meditation, which I know is something that you care a ton about.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Cool.
I'm super curious because, and maybe we can help out our audience a little bit. Bikram, sure. Ying, I know somebody mentioned yoga earlier, but for people who maybe are a little bit on the outside looking in, Lydia, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what you do, who you are, and maybe what some of those words mean. Should we be scared of those words because they sound pretty intimidating?
I shouldn't be scared of anything. You should just trust. But so my story, I'll tell you a short version, and then we'll see how far we get into the messy, sticky, beautiful version. Short version is that I am the founder of Lunar Nourishment, Lunar, Lunar. It's a women's wellness platform. And so what I do is I educate women about the different phases of their menstrual cycle. And so I help women who are interested in starting families, who have been trying, different fertility methods and haven't had success. I kind of coach women who want to get off of hormonal birth control and be a little bit more natural. And I also, for the past 2.5 years, have been hosting women's new moon ceremonies in my living room, my house here in Austin. And so through all of those different kind of avenues and my online courses, I basically just help women connect to their bodies and their spirit through lots of different things. And yeah, that's my elevator speech. How's that? Does that give you an idea?
So that's a great elevator speech. I've got a couple questions. So like an extended elevator speech then. Sounds like you met Ben through some yoga classes you were teaching, or
yes.
Is that kind of, is that like part of Lunar Nourishment, or is that?
Yeah, I do a lot of, I gave you a really short elevator speech, I guess, because I also do a lot of yoga and guided meditation and Reiki, like energy body work. But yeah, Ben came to a yin class, Y-I-N, yin class that I was teaching at a Bikram studio. He can tell you more about Bikram yoga because I'm not a student of that, but I do teach yin there. And yin yoga is the complete opposite of what most people think of when they think of like a powerful yoga class, meaning you move the body a lot. So a Bikram class or an energetic class is more yang. You know, you've heard of yin and yang. And a yin class is the opposite. It's really slow and relaxed. And instead of trying to build muscle and hold your body in postures, you're softening muscle, you're stretching connective tissue. And it's a beautiful class. I've taught yin and restorative yoga pretty much primarily for the last couple of years. And I think it's what a lot of people need the most, you know, they can get the most benefit from that practice, but it's a hard practice because you have to be still, you have to sit with the sensations. But I think Ben's pretty good at sitting with them, it seems.
So really, I'm not actually good at the postures. I'm just really good at falling asleep.
Oh, yes, I have. So every week I teach a lot of classes, have people fall asleep, some people snore, or I have people cry and like kind of release a lot. Last week it was crying. This week we'll see what it'll be. Sleeping or crying.
You people become just so activated in some of your guided meditation sessions that they can't really like face what comes to the surface, or what do you mean?
Well, these are this is in a public yoga class, so they're in the postures, and I do a lot of breath work in my classes. I concentrate on breath work, and so I'm having them inhale through their nose and then sigh it out from their mouth, and that can be really intense for people because the only time they hear their breath is when they're exercising or making love or afraid. 3 really intense practices. And so when they get the chance to be heard and to let their breath be heard for an hour, it pulls up a lot of things that are ready to come to the surface and kind of come out. And so, yeah, can be quite emotional for some people.
I know with some mindfulness practices, there's a recommendation. There's like a certain profile of person, different stress vulnerabilities that they actually recommend not doing for not engaging at all, or not engaging quite as long, because it can bring out such intense experiences that the person just isn't necessarily psychologically like capable of managing.
Yeah, it's definitely, you have to, so like, because it's a yoga class, it's not an hour, just of breath work. So I definitely have to not just read the energy, but my favorite part about teaching is that I get to check in with my students before class, and we have conversation, and I see what the room feels like, what their energy feels like, because it's my full passion and belief that no yoga practice should look the same for everybody, because we're all, you're at a different place every single day. You're not the same person you were yesterday. And so I love kind of offering a class that is for the group as a whole and for those individual students.
That's honestly also my favorite part about yoga. And that's what drew me to yoga, specifically to Bikram first, as opposed to what I was doing, which was a lot of like triathlon training and marathon stuff and things like that. It's that it's so personalized. It's so focused on where you're at in the moment, and your ability to be successful or unsuccessful in practice is solely determined by how well you can know yourself in the moment, how well you can understand what's happening in your body and your mind and your breath and all of that. And it's incredible, because I genuinely think the most important thing that we can do as humans is to learn how to know ourselves, to learn how to listen to ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's probably nothing profound to say that something that's been developed by, monks and mystics over millennia is a great way to get to that. But, I figured this out in 2016. So, so there we go.
It's the truth. It's like we all get to that. Some people get to it through other ways, and it takes some people a while, and some people are born understanding that, but it's all the same.
So what was your journey to that like? I know we talked a little bit about, if I remember correctly, growing up, because you grew up in Texas, right?
No, I'm from Mississippi.
Okay, I don't know where I was getting in Texas. But did you grow up, am I remembering correctly, did you grow up in kind of a conservative religious context?
No.
Okay,
really.
I don't know who I'm thinking of, but, but what did your journey to where you're at now as a healer, as somebody focused on the body and the spirit, what did that look like?
I'll start telling you, and it can get kind of long. So if you need me to pause, just tell me, okay?
Hit it. We love it.
So I grew up in a conservative town. I grew up in a small town. I mean, it's not that old. 6,000 people. That's small to a lot of people. Small town in Mississippi. To not hippie parents, but my parents were definitely like liberals in our town. And my father is from Lebanon, and he immigrated to the United States and then met my mom, and they're happily ever after. And I grew up, had a twin sister, had a pretty normal upbringing for an identical twin, because that's like kind of a special thing. And normal childhood, except we had a brother who passed away when he was 8 in a car wreck, and then my parents got pregnant with us less than a year later. And so I feel like me and my sister Marlena were kind of born already on a certain journey, if that makes sense. Like we grew up or were raised in this womb of a grieving woman. So we kind of had that in our bones, and then we're born into the world, and as soon as we can understand language, we're told about our brother, so we know about death, the moment we can understand. And so
I think that's rare. I don't know that happens very often for a lot of kids. They have to think about death, even as children. Grant, do you remember thinking about that much when you were a kid?
I'm actually really curious to hear Lydia keep going, but
talking about death, like that's just a unique experience to have to face that as a child that early.
No, I don't think I really had to face death until late in high school. But I mean, we can get to that. Lydia, please keep
go ahead.
Keep going.
It was very it was just a fact, and it was very. The truth, was told that they were in a car accident. My mother almost died, and she was in a coma, and my father had to plan my brother's funeral and my mom's because they didn't know if she was going to survive. But she did. And it's hard, when you lose a child, but then when you have another son to take care of and 2 twin baby girls, it's, can be a lot. So my parents had their hands full, but it was a loving, very, very protective upbringing. Call us when you get to every place you're going, just because of the whole, you lose one child, you're afraid you're going to lose your other ones. So pretty sheltered existence. And also on my part, I sheltered myself. I had, my twin, and she would go out with friends and do things, but I got my first set of paints when I was 8 years old and started painting. And so a lot of my childhood was in my room on my floor, just painting, right when I got home from school until dinner time. Also, though, that's not unusual for someone that grows up in Mississippi. Everybody that grows up in a small town not everybody, but most people are very creative because there's nothing to do but be creative or go to Walmart.
It's like my hometown. Literally, that's what only instead of be creative, it was sadly do drugs, and sometimes Walmart coincided with that.
Well, those were the 2 choices. Yeah, it was you had the creative kids, we played guitar and we were musicians and we did art and we had shows and stuff, or you had the kids that hung out at McDonald's or Walmart. So it was interesting, but growing up, I was very much so a little old lady in a tiny girl's body. I remember I would be younger and I wouldn't let myself go outside and play until I finished my homework. Even though my parents said I could and everybody else was outside playing, I was like, no, I have to finish this first. So I was very.
What do you think that was? That's interesting.
It was my anxiety. It was. It was I needed to check that off my list, or I needed to control that. And so, but I didn't know what anxiety was until college, and I'll get to that. But yeah, good childhood. I don't know how far into detail you want me to go, so I'll just keep going through the years.
Wherever you want to go.
Okay. Well, anyways, I was, very artistic. That was pretty much my life from when I was about 8 years old until graduated high school. I went to college on an art scholarship and studied art and also business management, which is two very opposite modes of study. But
it's very structured with very non-structured. What was the goal? Like, did you have a goal for business management when you went to school?
I was thinking that I was going to manage an art gallery and that it would be nice to have a business degree.
Okay.
Originally, I wanted to be a librarian, though. I had always worked in the libraries in high school. Did someone just laugh at that?
Yeah, I did, because it's so fitting. That makes so much sense for what I know of your personality. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. So I worked in the library in high school and college, but you have to get a master's in library science, and I knew technology was like about to happen. And so I didn't do that. Did art and management, business. And all my business professors were like, why are you here? Because I didn't get good grades in my business classes, especially business calculus. And I was kind of just my head in the clouds. And then my art professors, I was like the top of the class. I had, in my opinion, and not just in my opinion, other people's opinion, one of the best senior art shows. And I was good on that with that degree. My other degree was just kind of rough. But when I was 19, I was in college and I rode my bike to class one day and I parked my bike and I went inside and I had some sort of attack. I passed out and I woke up on the bottom of an elevator because I was going up to my class. And my friend Kyle was beside me and he was like, what just happened? And I thought that I had low blood sugar, where you stand up and you get dizzy and you see black.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told him, I was like, I rode my bike here. I think I have low blood sugar. I need to go to the nurse. So he took me to the nurse and I told her what happened. And then she started asking me questions about my personal life or how do you feel? And I remember telling her, I'm kind of stressed, but I'm fine. And the guidance counselor overheard me and she poked her head out of her office and she was like, Lydia, will you come here for a second? And so I came in her office and she sat me down and she just started asking me. I had never, by the way, heard or thought of a therapist or a counselor or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was just
Not
happy.
uncommon.
Yeah, I was just going along. I didn't even know what that was. And so I just started talking to her and we had a conversation and she was like, you have anxiety. And I was like, what is that word? I had never heard that word, anxiety. And I was like, that's a really weird word. What does that mean? And she talked to me some more and I had a panic attack. I hadn't had low blood sugar. I just had a full-blown panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
And I skipped a huge part of my story. But anyways, so that happened and set me on this whole path that I am now that has basically led me to being this woman who helps other women with their body and their anxiety. But I need to rewind a second.
Do it.
Because Ben, at the beginning of our conversation, you had said that you read my latest blog post.
I did, yeah. So for those that didn't catch this earlier, or if it gets cut out because we had a little bit of technical issues, so Lydia's blog on her website, lunarnourishment.com, is excellent. If you want a expose on vulnerability and realness and rawness from a woman who knows what she's talking about, definitely encourage you to check it out. It's very, very good.
Oh, that's nice of you.
Oh no, absolutely. I appreciate that. In vulnerability in any form, especially if it's as articulate as you are. So definitely recommended.
It's the truth. And I've found that, I'm 27, I'm young in the whole scheme of things, but I found that the more raw and real and truthful and honest I am, the more other people are with me and then they are with their community, and it just spreads into this completely authentic little bubble of existence. That's a pretty nice place to live in. But in that blog post, I had talked a little bit about some kind of physical things that I had dealt with when I was in high school, my body just started, it felt like it was failing me. Like I went to the emergency room a couple times because I had a really bad pain in my side. And I didn't know what it was at the time, and my parents didn't. And you go to the doctor and they just give you medicine. They just give you basically like a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I talked to Diane and realized that I had anxiety that I learned that all of those little random physical things, those little trips to the emergency room, the doctor, that was me panicking. Like that was a panic, essentially.
Somatization, my friends. Somatization.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. I mean,
oh yeah. That's when you started saying pain inside, I was like, I wonder if she's going where I think she's going. And yep.
Yeah. And so, but it was a freaking, do what?
Anxiety internalized. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. It was a crazy road to realization for that, because the first really bad kind of episode happened right before I went to college. I had broken up with my high school sweetheart because I didn't want to do long distance, and I couldn't eat. I mean, you know, people, sometimes when people die, like and they're grieving, you can't eat. But I had broken up with him, and I was so beside myself. I was so hungry, but I couldn't swallow my food. And then after a few days, I was fine, and I completely forgot about that episode until I get back to school. You know, I've told you now, up until this point, I didn't know I had anxiety. And then the counselor, Diane, let me know that I had this thing called anxiety. And so I ride my bike back home, and I don't really say anything to anybody. I just kind of go about my existence, and I don't have another panic attack, but I all of a sudden the next day or a couple days later, I can't swallow my food. And I'm so hungry, and I'm a really good cook. I love to cook. It's like one of my biggest passions. And so I would make these just beautiful dishes of food, and it's just sitting there, and I'm like chewing, and I cannot swallow it. Like if you had put $100 on the table in front of me to eat my food, I couldn't have done it. And so I let this go by for a couple of days, but then I was like, dude, I'm hungry. Like I got to tell somebody. Like, this can't be happening. And so I went back to Diane and talked to her about my day and about not being able to swallow. And she listened to me and validated me and like offered me a snack, and I ate it and I could swallow. And so this little play kind of went back and forth of me freaking out and stressing out until eventually I was talking to her twice a week, every week for weeks and weeks, maybe a couple months. And she asked me to take some time out of school and go home and get on some medicine for my panic attacks, because I was still having them.
So they were pretty bad at that point then.
They were
pretty bad.
Yeah, I was, not eating very well and not sleeping. And I was just like beside myself. And nothing even crazy was happening in my life. It was just a normal college existence, but it was just like from my whole life, I think, just compounded and was just coming out. And so that day she told me she would call all my professors and tell them I was going to go home for a couple weeks. And so for the first time in my life, I was 19. For the first time, I called my sister and my parents, and I asked for help. Like, I just, for the first time, admitted that I wasn't feeling normal and wasn't feeling right. Because I was always the middle child, and I was always like, I'm the one that's okay, and I'll take care of everybody else.
What did that feel like to do that? Because you said you were very self-sufficient. Yeah, imagine.
It was humbling. It was like the first time I realized, like, oh, that's what ego is. I have an ego. Like, that's what the word pride means, is that you're embarrassed when you have to ask for help. But, oh, my God, it was so liberating. So I, like, called my sister, called my mom. My sister drove the 3 hours. I went to school in Arkansas. She drove and got me. But first I called all my friends, and I asked them to come over, and I sat them down in my living room, and I told them everything. I was like, I've been speaking to Diane. I've got panic attacks. When I'm hanging out with y'all, I really feel like throwing up because I don't feel good. here's the deal, like whatever. And they were so sweet and so supportive. It was beautiful.
So was that like your first experience? I know you said a second ago that you really like vulnerability, where we could find it. Was that the first time you really experienced that with friends?
With anyone, yeah. That was the first time that I just like put myself out there. And it felt so good. Like I remember I ate so much that night. I just remember being so relieved because in this whole episode, this whole process, I had gone home because I wasn't swallowing before I thought it was anxiety. And I had gone to the emergency room with the doctor and they made me swallow this, what was it? Barium. This is a chemical and you swallow it and they can see you're swallowing your esophagus in the x-ray. And so they saw my esophagus was spasming. I was so freaking anxious that my esophagus was spasming. So they gave me muscle relaxers. And I took one muscle relaxer and it made me feel so terrible. And I had such a headache that I just threw them away and never took them again. And then that was when I went and saw Diane more. But anyways, do you want me to make a long story short or do you want me to just keep going?
No, I mean, this story is absolutely fascinating because I have heard reflections of this told by so many people. I've experienced a lot of things like that myself, actually. I had tons of panic attacks in high school and college as well. So it's interesting to hear your journey out of that because I think a lot of people struggle with mental illness and don't realize it. And you can definitely attest to this too.
Oh, absolutely. There's sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Lydia, thank you for sharing. I'm like, too bad we're not on video feed right now because I'm just like raising my fist. I'm like, yes, all about this. No, I think it just takes obviously like a journey of a lot of ups and downs and a lot of courage and comfortability, even sharing this with one complete stranger and one non-stranger. But yeah, so there's so many layers there that I think probably resonate with like a lot of people and all two of our listeners. But no, and to kind of piggyback off of what Ben was saying, or maybe what you were like starting to allude to, is this kind of what I see with a lot of my members and a lot of my clients and people who endure any number of different psychological or mental health concerns is like a self-stigma.
Yes.
Or even more, like what's most mind-blowing to me is that you had not heard the word anxiety for 19 years in your life. Like that was, and I think that probably helps perpetuate like a self-stigma, but that was not part of like like common day vernacular. Like, well,
the funny thing is my mother has been on anti-anxiety medicine since I was 13.
Did you know that prior? Like when that happened, was that something that was part of your world?
No,
Oh,
I didn't
so
know. And she didn't talk about it.
So like, I mean, for a number of different reasons, I feel like I'm not a huge fan of millennials generally, but what I really, really have embraced about part of the culture that we're kind of co-creating together is a greater acceptance of mental health concerns because of like what our parents or our grandparents, what we observed in them is like the suffering in silence.
Yes.
And what do the experts tell us about mental illness? It's not that it just like is experienced in one generation. It's like, no, you were like born into this system that was faced with a lot of trauma and death and obviously mental illness in being treated, but like you were given medicine and that didn't really help. In fact, it might have been more harmful, but as soon as you were actually able to just talk about it and kind of challenge that self-stigmatization, I love it. Love it. That's awesome.
It's interesting. I had a woman come and film me she's creating a documentary about women with anxiety, and she came and filmed me and stayed with me like maybe a month ago. And she herself suffers from anxiety, and she's young. She's 23, and she's filming me as the slightly older subject who is kind of pushed through the anxiety, even though I still experience it every day. But and then she's got a younger subject who maybe doesn't know what anxiety is yet.
Right.
But in speaking with her in the interview, I wanted to share with her, because I could, feel her anxiety, that the moment I stopped identifying with it was when my life changed. Because the thing is, I'm at the beginning of my story. I'm not going to go through it in such detail, but this was this was 8 years ago that this all happened. And so for about 6 years of the past 8 years, 6.5 years, I was identifying with anxiety. I was identifying with a mental illness. I was thinking of myself as Lydia who has anxiety but is working through it. And it wasn't until I started really, really forming a connection with my body and literally my endocrine system, like my part of my autonomic nervous system, the part that controls cortisol, that controls these anxious reactions and feelings that we have. It wasn't until I started just being in a deep relationship with that part of myself that I really feel like I'm kind of over the mountain of it, and I'm on the other side.
Yeah, how did that happen?
Talk more about that. Yeah.
That was, so it, 8 years ago, or 7 years ago, no, 8, I started doing yoga. And this was
on a whim, or you just like wandered into a studio?
So at my college, the guidance counselor's office was in the same building that they offered yoga for students.
Okay.
And she suggested I go, and it was a small school, 600 students total, so an absolutely tiny school, and no one came. So I had private yoga for 2 years, twice. For $5. Like, it was great.
Amazing.
And so I remember the first time I ever did pigeon, I busted out crying. Just couldn't control it. And that moment, I remember smelling like the stinky feet smell of the borrowed yoga mat that was on the carpet in the Morrow building. And I just remember bawling my eyes out because I was opening this energy center in my body, and I didn't even know it at the time. And so that was kind of where my mind-body connection clicked. And I realized, like, holy shit, all of that stuff I've been through, even when I was a little girl and my stomach would hurt and my mom would call me a hypochondriac. No, my stomach did hurt because I was anxious.
Right.
And so I stayed on the surface level of the body-mind connection with yoga. Not to say yoga is shallow, but I just stayed kind of in those waters that I was familiar with of vinyasa yoga, moving in that forward motion, sun salutations over and over every day for 5 years. And it was great. And I got my yoga teacher training, and then I stopped practicing. It was a few months after I got my yoga teacher training, like certification, I overstretched my piriformis muscle. So I had to stop practicing, and something made me stop, and I stopped for a year. I did not practice. And in that year, my world just blew open. It was like all of the energy that I had been moving around in my body in the same way was ready to come out. And so I started meditating. I went to my first Vipassana meditation course. That's a 10-day silent meditation course where you meditate about 10 hours a day. It's very solitary. It's beautiful, beautiful retreat into yourself. I highly recommend it. I'm going to pause and talk about it.
I'm really curious, because if you went from sticking with the standard sun salutations, doing your vinyasa flows and stuff, then jumped off of it altogether, was it something from teacher training that got you interested in longer full body scan type meditation? Was it something else?
It was, so during the teacher training, we did 30 minutes of guided meditation every Saturday.
Okay.
And I loved it. And our teacher, Hilly Flora Ben Heath, Hilly mentioned her Vipassana experience. And she talked about how hard it was, but how amazing it was. And up until that point, I had never done anything hard except for like physical, like, backpacking trips or kayaking, like physical things, but nothing really mentally hard. So I was just drawn to it. And it was the first time where I felt like I was mothered in a way that I needed to be.
Talk about that a little bit. Where was that?
So the retreat centers, every Vipassana retreat is free. So you don't pay. At the end, you give, what you feel comfortable giving. And so that's how the centers are run, on donations from previous students. And you get there, and this was a center in Texas that's really nice. So you get there and you get your own room and your own bathroom and 3 lovely meals a day of vegetarian food that feels kind of like your mom cooked it. And I went in January, and it was cold. And I just remember, it was silent. It's 10 days around 100 people, and you don't make eye contact and you don't talk. And you're there by yourself, but you're getting fed this comforting food. You're following this strict kind of rigorous schedule of, wake up at 4, meditate until 6. And I just felt like I was taking care of myself when I went. And you die a little when you go there, because you're in the Dhamma hall, you're meditating, your legs are shaking. This is day 4, and you've been sitting 10 hours a day, and you can see how just fucked up your mind is. I don't know how many hours at a time y'all have meditated, but holy shit, like your mind is crazy.
Yeah.
It's insane, and it's not real. It's stories that we carve. And so for the first time, I had like the silence to get to see that most of my existence up until that point had just been stories that I've been carving. And yeah, it was like, I would sit there and I'd, have a full-on panic attack, but you can't leave. I mean, you can, they're not going to hold you back, but you just have to sit with it. Right. And so I had to sit with, my face going numb, starting at my nose, and then I'd feel the numbness go into my cheeks and my lips, and then I'd feel my heart rate start to increase, and then I'd feel my shoulders tense, and you just feel every sensation. And then you just know it's a sensation, and you're not going to die, and you're going to be okay.
Were you guided into that? Like, because you said that you were experiencing this, and I know you didn't talk to anybody, but like, did you share this with the instructor, whoever was leading meditation, or did you just have to?
Oh, no. So you don't, it's like it's a man and a woman up on this kind of like stage thing. And the only interaction you have with them is once a day. If you're a new student, is once a day, for like a second, and you can tell them things, but all they'll say is, you'll be okay. You'll be okay.
Wow.
So it's just kind of, you're all in it for yourself. And a lot of people don't make it the 10 days. A lot of people leave on the 3rd day and the 6th day and then the 8th day. But they teach you, they teach you first, the first 4 days, you're not taught Vipassana yet. You're taught Anapana, which is a different practice of just feeling the sensations of your breath on your upper lip and going through your nostril. So for 4 days, you just meditate and notice your breath. And then on the 4th day, you learn Vipassana. And that's where it's the scanning of the body. And that's where you get high, basically. Is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about the body of light experience from Vipassana. Did you run into that? Like, were you just kind of like transition?
One time.
Yeah.
One time. And that one time, I feel like I learned more that in that moment than I learned in the last in my entire lifetime, really. It was like,
that's incredible.
It was like, I never really talked about it like this. That's funny. I've just realized now that I don't ever talk about this. Yeah, it's just that moment of like pure knowing or something, but it just is a second and then it's gone. And then you're like, okay, maybe I'll get it again. And so you just keep working on it. And I felt it, but just knowing, just Vipassana let me know that I'm divine and that I'm beautiful. And I didn't feel that before. Like, I don't know. It let me know that, and then it kind of catapulted my journey into the whole mind-body connection, because I got to feel my body, you know, in that moment.
So what did you, after you left this retreat center and it was total mountaintop experience, something that was above and beyond anything you'd ever experienced, and like you said, catapulted you forward, like what did you want to do first when you got out of there? Did you know you were gonna like launch into lunar nourishment type stuff, or what happened there?
Oh no, that was, so yeah, lunar nourishment didn't happen for another year, 2 years, or year and a half. So maybe Vipassana was 3 years ago. The first thing I wanted to do, I don't even remember. That's terrible that I don't remember. I think I wanted to do yoga again. I think I wanted to start moving again. So I tried and dilly-dallied in it. No, I feel like I wanted to love people. Like I saw my parents right the day that I got back that evening. I saw my parents, which there was, you know, lots of kind of tension between me and them. And I remember nothing they said even made my heart beat faster. Like nothing triggered me. It was like they were just beings of like pure love, and that's what I saw. It was really hard to go back to work. I worked for the city, the sustainability office, a beautiful place to work, but it was real hard to go to a desk job after that.
That's the danger of stuff like that. Is you're like, oh, the real world doesn't matter.
Yeah, I remember going back to work and I was just like, you people, this is crazy. But okay, the one huge thing that happened after it was that was when I was starting to be 100% Lydia, like just authentic, brutally honest Lydia, 100% of the time. Like I remember it just, Vipassana just cut out the bullshit. Like I couldn't go back to work and talk over coffee, you know, like I couldn't have small conversations. And so that was in January. And then fast forward about 9 months, and that was when I started getting into the moon and the moon cycles and leading women's circles.
What was the transition there? Because you moved back, you were in your world, you were noticing that the things you thought were important weren't quite as important, and things you hadn't thought of were more important than you could have imagined. It's like, what was the transition from that to getting back into yoga to getting into women's health overall?
The transition back into yoga is still a very rocky road, honestly. That's like a huge kind of, probably will be the rest. It'll be a longer journey. But it was, I remember I ended up moving. I moved into a different home. I moved apart. Me and my twin were living together and we got separate places. And that was a big kind of shift, like moving into this new space. And the transition, I remember from about January until, here you go. Okay, here's a transition. It's all coming back now. So I started seeing this energy worker soon after, probably in the spring, and he made me feel like how Vipassana did after his sessions. And so I was kind of like on this high of like just riding the waves of like the divinity that I got to see for just a split second. And in October, after that January, in October, I fell in love with myself. Like I had never truly loved myself or thought I was like some cool girl or anything. I didn't have an opinion about me. And something like sparked in me. And I remember it sounds so superficial, but like up until that point, I had never like gone shopping for myself or painted my nails or done anything kind of on the surface level. It was just like a very just like kind of guy's girl. And I remember that October, something in me wanted to like treat myself. And so I started taking myself on like dates. I would go eat at these nice restaurants. I was making like pretty good money. And I took myself on a shopping spree. I bought nail polish, like glittery nail polish for the first time, and like painted my nails. I'm never throwing away that nail polish bottle. I still have it. And it was just a really interesting time. Like I just remember it was the first time I felt just totally comfortable with myself. And then somehow I was on Instagram and there was some goddess challenge. This is how I got into the moon stuff. You're gonna laugh. But there was like a daily like show us your goddess or something challenge on Instagram. And so I like started joining it. And so I think it was a month-long challenge. For 30 days, you learned about a different goddess archetype and you would embody her for that day. You know, like the goddess of shadow and light, Persephone. And so I got super into it. I'm kind of a nerd. I like to read a lot. So I would take the challenge a step further and like go look up like folklore or tales about that specific goddess. And so I just learned about all of these different energies that women that we have. We are not one-dimensional. And I just fell in love with the idea that we are divine and we have this ancient wisdom that all you have to do is unlock it and it's there. And so I ended up winning that challenge out of like all these thousands of girls, and I won like a random free pair of shoes or something. I don't remember. Okay, I do remember it was a free pair of shoes. I gave them to my friend because I didn't like them. But anyways,
didn't like your friend or didn't like the shoes?
Didn't like the shoes. Didn't like the shoes. I gave them to my friend, and I started paying attention to the moon and just like learned about like setting intentions with the new moon. And so that was 2.5 years ago. I started bringing other women together, and it started as just this little newsletter where I was sending about 40 women in Austin my moon insights and reminders to come to my moon circles. And then I just kept doing that, and that was what I was so passionate about. And so I started making these lunar kits. They were kits of self-care products for women to use during the specific 4 different phases of their menstrual cycle. And so I was still working for the city, but I, ordered all these nice ingredients, started making the products, and they just sat there in my house. No one bought. I sold maybe 4. No one understood what a lunar kit even was. Because most women don't know about the 4 phases of their cycle. They only know about their period. And so long story short, I ended up quitting my job last July to concentrate on educating women about their moon cycles.
That's awesome.
And so that's what I've been doing now for a little over a year.
That's so cool. So that was just born out of a passion. It was your experience of life, and then you developed this crazy niche passion from that. That's so cool.
I know. It's really fucking crazy that like literally my job is to teach women about the moon. Like every time I say it out loud, I'm just like, is this real life? Like it's just crazy.
Have you ever read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek?
No, I've been told to read that.
So he has this great joke at the beginning where he talks about like the weirdness of being an entrepreneur and having to explain to people what you do. And he said he just started telling people he was a drug dealer because it got him a weird level of street cred, and it was easier to say than explaining what he actually did.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny. Only in the past few months have I understood what it is that I do. Really.
Yeah. So what you help women understand their bodies. So if you take it a step further from that, when you say you understand what it is that you do, because it's obviously really multifaceted, and you do more than just work with women. How would you explain what it is that you do?
In a deeper way, you're saying?
Yeah. What do you feel like your mission as Lydia right now? Not just Lydia the woman or Lydia the owner of Lunar Nourishment.
Yeah.
What's your mission and your goal, your vision
My
for yourself in the world?
Yeah, my mission, my goal is to let people know that they are 100% stronger that they've been taught to believe. Like
Mm-hmm.
we are so powerful. We are self-healing bodies and we have lost our power. And so I don't know, I'm here to like help people step into their own power, into who they are, not who they think they're supposed to be or who they want to be, but who they really, really are deep down.
That's so beautiful and so true. What really struck me with what you were talking about a second ago, your process of healing. You mentioned early on your mom being on medication, but you didn't say anything at all about yourself with that. And I think it's fascinating that this whole journey of discovery and healing and exploration, all of it was all just a turning inward.
Yes.
It was all just a thinking and learning and growing, and it wasn't necessarily a matter of therapy being done. I know you said you were.
I was on
for a
medicine.
while. You were, okay.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah. So I didn't know if I should get into that because it's another long story, but we can talk longer because this is fun.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I did end up going home for those 2 weeks, and my mom and dad sent me to a therapist or psychiatrist, and I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and I was prescribed Xanax.
Oh, wow.
3 Xanax a day.
Whoa.
For morning, noon, and night.
Jeez.
Yeah, and so I did what the doctor said, and I was so anxious that the medicine only worked. It just allowed me, I was just able to eat and sleep. Like it didn't fuck me up any more than that. It just made me relaxed enough to be able to eat and sleep.
Wow.
And so I did that for a few months, and then I got angry. I was like, this can't be, because it also made my existence very boring.
Yeah,
I didn't.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've felt nothing. And so one day, which I should have sold those things, but I flushed them down the toilet. What, in college, you know?
No, yeah, you can get some great quick cash for selling a few Xanny on the corner.
I know, I had tons of them. I had like 2 bottles, but anyways, flushed them down the toilet because I was a good girl, and which you're actually not supposed to just stop taking that.
Nope, that's very bad for you.
But I did.
Also, if you ever want to dispose of psychotropic medication, actually take them to your local police station. They'll have a disposal bin there.
Yeah, I just didn't know anything.
Or fire departments.
Yes. So that's what I did, and called my mom, and I was like, I'm not taking those. Like, this is terrible. So they made me come back home, went back to the doctor, got on Lexapro, which is like, it's for anxiety and depression. Yeah. It's used interchangeably, and it's a long-term medicine. Lexapro was great for me. I remember the first week that it kicked in, I was walking around campus, and I saw a bird. And I had forgotten that birds existed.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about birds. And I saw a bird, and I remember in my head, I was like, oh, birds. Those things that sing.
Yeah.
And so I was on the Lexapro from, my junior and senior year of college, and then a year after college. I lived at home and worked in Memphis and had a fine existence. I was just kind of floating. It allowed me, the medicine, I don't agree with it now, but then I needed it, and it was fine, and that was part of my journey. But then I moved to Austin, and it's Austin, so.
Yeah, see, Grant doesn't know, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Wait, where are you, Grant?
I live in Chicago.
Oh, for real? Didn't know that.
Yeah. Then you didn't do adequate preparation.
Well, so yeah, I
so just like, hey, will you do the podcast with this stranger? I didn't even.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So Grant and I are good friends from college. Actually, we went to a theology school in Chicago and have a long and crazy journey of kind of wandering out of that and finding ourselves. But
nice.
Yeah. But it's interesting you said that, though, because and I'm not going to tell my whole story because this is about you, but my experience with anxiety also led me to a point where I was taking Lexapro. And I remember that moment. Yeah, I remember that moment too. For me, it was music. Like music has always been a huge part of my life, and I remember from probably about my sophomore year in college until shortly after I graduated, it was just like a peripheral thing. It was like background noise. And I remember I'd been taking Lexapro for like probably a month. I don't even remember what song it was, but I remember a song coming on. I was like, "Oh man, this song is awesome! Like, what is going on here?" And like, that passion of experiencing beauty. You're like, "Oh, I didn't know this was missing, but man, life is better when this comes back."
Yes, because it's like with the medicine, it quieted my mind long enough for me to notice things. Because for me, anxiety is, and this isn't, I'm not saying this necessarily negatively, but it is. Anxiety is ego. For me, anxiety is my brain, my mind. It's not my spirit speaking. And so the medicine, I was on it for a few years, and I needed it for those few years. I was able to get by. I got a good job when I moved to Austin. Like, it was good. But also when I moved to Austin, I started doing yoga every single day. And through the yoga, how did I start with the nutrition? Somehow I started getting really into Ayurveda and that whole kind of wisdom of eating. And so I started changing the way I was eating, and I noticed that I was less anxious. And so I just decided, I didn't tell anybody but my sister. She was on medicine as well. We both just decided to very, very slowly get off of the medicine. And so I won't go into the detail because it's not advised to do this, but it took about 6 months. And that's how slow we were doing it. And completely changed the way I was eating. I was eating healthy, but just barely, just on the shallow level of healthy.
Yeah, not like mindfully. You're just eating poorly. Yeah.
Well, I was still like buying like sliced bread, things like that. But changed my diet, and then I did get off the medicine, and I've been off the medicine for, 4 years, 3.5 years.
It's always, I work a lot in the hospital system, and I've always found it like a really, really, it's ironic that these like bastions of health, if you ever like look at what a lot of individuals at like a very basic level type hospital are being fed. It's like this is not this is not promoting recovery, and I recognize there's like a lot of economic concerns that go into that, and it's obviously not just like a single layer concern, but
but Coke costs more than water, so they could at least stop that.
Right, exactly.
I mean, my 80-year-old grandfather's in the hospital right now drinking Coke.
Right, and it's like there are some very is it really that complicated or complex of an issue to at least cut out like, hey, science says like this isn't a good thing. And,
well, but they have to make money, so it's it's a profit. Our hospital system is for profit. So when you think about the pharmaceutical industry, but that's a whole other.
Right, I was going to say that's that's like that's a dip into like a really, really, really fascinating conversation that you probably all have pretty strong opinions.
We'll skim over that because I've got some really strong opinions.
That's my world. I worked in that industry for 4 years, so I hear you. So, question for both of you guys, actually, because thinking about diet and nutrition and like just general mindfulness, whether it's focused on diet or focused on activities or whatever, when it comes to what you were talking about, Lydia, eating well, like being mindful of what you're eating and how that had an impact for you, and then Graham, what you were mentioning about like the hospital system not encouraging wellness with that. Do you guys think it's more important to actually eat certain things, or do you think it's more important to simply be mindful about how often, when, how much you're eating? Because I've heard like a lot of varying opinions on that, and I'm curious if
I think it's completely even.
Do you think so?
I do. Do you want me to answer, or do you want to say something?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Go for it, yeah. Yeah, continue.
Well, so like my business is based around the moon cycles, but even taking a step further from that is based around human cycles. So how we have evolved and who we are now, our sleep cycle, our circadian rhythm. Mm-hmm. And when I started getting into Ayurveda, I started learning that everybody's different, but there's obviously two kind of different types of people. There's like people that are kind of slow and sluggish, more prone to depression. They're really chill, mellow, keep kind of thoughts to themselves. And then there's people that are high energy, heat, external. They talk a lot. They're just super like a squirrel. And so
that's me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's people that are right down the middle. So you have those three main categories. And, we need to eat based on our dosha, on our energy makeup. And our energy makeup isn't just determined by the amount of cortisol that we have running through our body. It's determined by the stars. It's determined by our zodiac sign. And so I can look at people that come to my yoga class and I can assume that they're one of three signs, or I can assume that they're this other sign. And I'm right every time, because it's their deep-seated energy. And so I feel like, for me, it's like kind of a no-brainer to know that one person needs to eat differently than another, because their energy makeup is different and the food is going to break down in their body differently. And so, yeah, I'm super passionate about that whole concept.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree. I don't like framing it in an either or kind of way. Your question was what you eat or how you eat, which one's more important? In terms of what I would consider what you eat, I'd almost want to encourage reflection on like what are we trying to accomplish? What's the purpose behind what you eat, which feeds almost directly into your second question. Is this something that's being done mindlessly, or in a scarfing type manner, or for survival? Is this something that's done with a little bit more mindfulness, intent, awareness? And really, it's almost a matter of like, if you begin to understand like how it is you're engaged with your food, I feel like you're also just generally going to be more aware of how you are just engaged with your world, right? Because the type of person who asks the question of how they're engaged with their food is probably going to be the type of person that asks how they're engaged in other spheres of their existence as well. And I would move that to or at least apply the same principles to I think a number of different categories that just mark somebody's existence, right? What is it you're doing, and how are you doing it, right?
Right.
And I think those are two really valuable questions, just to direct your day, drive your day, and your
intention
and your intent, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What about you, Ben? How do you answer that question?
I would say exactly what both of you just said. In retrospect, it's about the holistic approach to your life. Like, are you noticing, like what you just said, Lydia? Are you noticing what you're doing? Are you noticing how you feel about what you're doing? Are you noticing what's happening around you? And how does that awareness filter down into the actions that you take ongoing?
Yeah.
For me, the most important thing that I do any day, and I don't do this often enough, and it's something that I have to like hammer into my life because it's so hard to do. The most important time in my entire day is when I wake up in the morning, I stop, I finally get the sleep out of the corner of my eyes, and I sit and I just breathe, and I think about where I am in the moment. I think about what is going to be going on for the day. I reflect on how and why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, and I set an intention for the day. And that takes 5-10 minutes, but that awareness, it impacts the choices that you make about your food. It impacts the choices you make about your friends and your relationships and your work and whatever that is. And if you can bring that general mindfulness into the rest of your activities for the whole day, it just makes a world of difference.
And with the difference, I would almost say is how much of life do we engage in a really reactive manner?
Right? Oh, yes.
Where the world is just coming at us, and we are making decisions just as almost in like a survival mechanism, right? Just trying to react and make it through. And if that's our modus operandi, then yes, anxiety, yes, depression, yes, personality concerns or relationship difficulties. Because it becomes so much to carry, because all you're doing is surviving. You're not
thriving.
That sense of control that Lydia mentioned really, really early on, that sense of control is just it's just not even in the equation. And I think like what I really love about what Lydia, kind of what you've been, I'd probably am going to word it differently, but the idea that's coming to my mind is and it actually fits really well with like what our title is, right? Pale Blue Dot Podcast. We are on this earth and have essentially no control over anything that occurs around us. The only thing we really have control over is our own response to the world unfolding around us. And to really take ownership of that, like nobody will ever take ownership of it completely. I think that's a flawed project, but to at least have that awareness that the only thing we can really manipulate our own responses to that is profoundly liberating. And being able to surrender the majority of things that we cannot control, accept our own responses, whether we're going to be reactive or proactive, and in that proactivity, take like ownership of how uncomfortable it can be. The
power of intention is a real thing, and that's what is life-changing, and what I feel like is the reason that Lunar Nourishment has the reach it does, is because these women come to my house every month and set intentions, and they literally come back the next month and their intention has happened every single month. And they get to see it, like the power of it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this earlier, Lydia. When I was reading through your blog, I was noticing, because obviously this is a project that you have that's geared specifically towards the needs of women.
Yes.
But I was noticing how, it's probably what you're just going to say, I was noticing how universal the principles that you're talking about are.
Yeah, because all of my regular Reiki clients, pretty much, well, 3 of them are men, and I work with a lot of men, which is funny because my demographic is women ages 25 to 35, but I have a lot of men come to my yoga classes and they don't feel comfortable in the beginning, and I recognize that, and I can see, because I'm a more masculine woman, just that's how I operate, and so I connect with them, and so I'm glad you recognize that universality of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, well, so there is a universality to it, which is cool. But what is also interesting with that is that in our commonalities, right, as people, the things that make me a person are roughly similar to the things that make you a person and make Grant a person. Like we all share experiences and needs and desires, like just for being human, right? Like I don't possess the ability to not eat food, and Grant has to. Like we all, there's certain things that we need to be alive and to thrive. What's so cool is that when you start to notice and you start to pay attention, you start to be mindful, you're not only able to address those commonalities, but you're also able to drill into the uniqueness within that, right? Like when you were talking about nutrition, I don't necessarily need the same things on the same days at the same times that you do, and same for Grant. And there's something cool and I think exceptionally magnetic about doing something like what you're doing with women, where you're taking that common experience and you're saying, okay, what's the uniqueness within that? Like what's the uniqueness within that to women? And let's go one step further. What's the uniqueness in that to you, individual woman, as a person?
Yeah.
And
that's a great way to put it.
It's really cool. It's just that continuously stripping away of the layers and moving down deeper and deeper to the point where you can know an individual. And that's part of what we're hoping to try to do with this show. And I love to see that you're doing that. Like I'm a nerd. You're like the female version of like what I want to be.
Oh. That's very
cool
kind
to
of
see you
you.
doing that. No, I
You know,
appreciate it.
it's even like not even as deep as I thought it was, because I work with a lot of women who want to have children but can't, but they have fertility issues because they've been on birth control, since they were 15 years old. And but rewind like a year and a half ago to when Lunar Nourishment first started, and it was those lunar kits I was telling you about.
Yep.
And remember I told you I only sold maybe 4 of them? I sold all 4 kits, the 4 different phases of the moon cycle, to this one woman that I didn't even know very well. And I didn't know, it was at a dinner party at a friend's house, and I had the kits in my car, and they asked me to get them out. So I did. And she said, I'll take all 4. Older woman, 40 years old, bought them. Never saw her again. I took a picture of her that night because I said, you're the first person that's bought a kit, so I'm going to take a picture of you. I still have the picture. I am at Joe's Coffee on South Congress 2 days ago, and I'm drinking. I never drink caffeine except when I need to get like a shit ton of work done. So I'm drinking a cup of coffee and I'm typing away, and I look up and it's the woman, and I didn't even recognize her. And her husband are like, are you Lydia? Or are you her twin? I'm like, hey, I'm Lydia. I was like, I know y'all. And the woman is holding a baby. And I was like, oh, whose baby is that? Because they were older and they had talked. I knew him from a friend. I knew they had never had kids before. And she said, it's our baby. And her husband was like, you made this baby. And I was like, wow. What are you talking about? And she said they had been trying to conceive for 5 years. And she bought my products and started tracking her cycle and learning, the things I had to share about your menstrual cycle, and they conceived 3 weeks later.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that's the 3rd time this has happened since I started Lunar Nourishment. It wasn't with women using products, but it was with women that I worked with. And there's 3 babies in the universe now that I think were born because these women connected themselves to their cycles. But anyways, what I was saying was I didn't even really know this woman. I didn't really share much with her except for the labels that were on the products, and she went deep herself. Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. What did you, I mean, that seems like it's a big part of what you're trying to do now. Reading through some of your stuff, that's definitely a focus. Like, what did you do with that? Like, what did you take away from that experience?
Just validation that it is real. It's not that conceiving isn't a scientific thing. It's a spiritual practice. And it's not in every case, but it can be when you dive deeper. So it was just really, when I hear those things, it makes me feel like I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I have not looked back, not one time.
That's really telling, because the only reason you would look back is if you weren't satisfied. So that definitely says that you're satisfied with what you're doing and enjoying that growth. That's
I'm
awesome.
like the poorest I've ever been, but the happiest. Like I feel so abundantly rich with time and freedom and happiness that it's like you couldn't pay me $150,000 a year to go back to my old job. Nothing. It's not worth it.
That's amazing. Taking that kind of one step further, if you were to give any advice to other people, whether it's at the starting phase of your journey, if you were to meet somebody who is you in high school and college experiencing anxiety, or a step off from that, or both, if you were talking to somebody who is kind of trapped in a world where they feel like they don't have control and that their time is kind of being pulled towards things they don't enjoy and they're not passionate about, what would your advice be to share that? So there's those two categories. Let me clarify my question. So somebody who was you in college, and then somebody who was you looking at venturing out and pursuing passions. What would your advice be?
I would give the same advice to both. Just go with your gut, because that's where it is. That's where everything happens. And I spent most of my life not being able to listen to my gut. So looking to other people for my decisions, looking to other people for my journey, looking to other people for advice and teachers and gurus and knowledge and information and books and learning and so much. But when you go with your gut, you're not thinking, you're not even feeling in your emotions. You're just in your intuition, using your soul. So for me, that when I started doing that, it was just like everything fell into place, because you're living your truth. I feel like a lot of anxiety happens when we're going against something that we deep down believe in.
Any practical steps to that? Because to me, when I hear go with your gut, my gut is crazy most of the time, and I have to take a step back and think about what it's saying.
I see what you're saying. You meant like Lydia, literally, what can these people do to not have a panic attack?
No, so yeah.
Well, I don't know if I have like words of advice for general people, because I feel like everybody's journey is so different. Like for me, it was panic attacks that led me to medicine, that led me to nutrition, that led me to no medicine, you know. But I feel like asking for help or taking that first step, you know, if you haven't yet told somebody how shitty you're feeling, like tell somebody, talk to somebody. You don't have to be in it alone. And I have this phrase that I say to myself every day: I don't believe in suffering anymore. Like I don't believe in suffering anymore. And I feel like I thought I was going to have to suffer when I was dealing with my anxiety. And I feel like a lot of people that are just in it, or they're in a job and they want to change jobs, but they're scared, they think they have to suffer. But life, I don't know, it's like a game, and you can just move your little puzzle piece where you want it, and nobody's paying as much attention to you as you think. So you can really just like step out on the ledge and just fly. It's totally possible. We just are taught that it's not. We're taught that our universe is in the four walls around us.
Yeah, that lesson specifically, I think that's probably one of the most important things that I've ever learned, that it's a lot harder to fail in the way that you're afraid of failing than it seems like. Right? Like when we think of failure, we think I'm going to do this and my life is going to be over. And then you do it and you're like, oh, I'm only slightly uncomfortable.
Exactly. What is that quote that says life begins outside of your comfort zone? It's so true. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think the quote was Lydia, Jarjoura, Pale Blue Dot Podcast 2016.
That's where it started.
Oh, y'all are funny. This is fun.
Yeah, this is great. So I know you said that you needed to get to bed, which I appreciate and totally respect that. And I can already feel myself. I can already feel myself. I stayed up too late last night. Yeah. But let's definitely continue this conversation in the future. I would love to have you back on again and hear more about your journey with this and whatever else you're doing, because it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Y'all are doing awesome things. Sharing these stories is what people need. So y'all are doing awesome. And thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming on, Lydia. We appreciate you spending some time with us this lovely Monday evening.
Good quality time with the guys.
Indeed.
Cool.
Thanks, Lydia, and thank you to all of you who listened. This is, again, Pale Blue Dot episode number 5. If you want to get in touch with us, as always, pbdpodcast@gmail.com. Our website's up as well now. Hooray! palebluedotpodcast.com. And Lydia, if people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
They can go to lunarnourishment.com, and they can sign up for my newsletter. I send out full moon and new moon kind of insights and juicy news. And if they want to get in touch with me directly, they can email me at connect@lunarnourishment.com.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hey, thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the week. And until next time, this is your Pale Blue Dot. Take care.